Okay, we're back with the video on how to do the lady with the hat as an applique. Before I get started, I'd just like to remind you that you can follow me on my Facebook page. I'll put a link below. I also have some short courses available on PayHip, which you can access, and I'll put a link to that below. Plus, you can always book a one-on-one private consult with me over Zoom, and that through TidyCal, and I'll put a link to that below. So there are lots of ways to interact with me, but you have given me some very positive feedback about this series of videos, so I'm going to go ahead with the applique here on YouTube. So without further ado, let's get over to design 1, which is my new design where I'm going to start the applique. I'll just zoom to fit. Okay, so this is an ideal image for an applique because it's very simple shapes. I've brought the image in at the original size, which is 198.47 millimeters high and 141.91 millimeters wide. That's the entire image, of course, including the white background. So it's the actual image is a little bit smaller, but remembering that our lines are going to be satin stitch, it's going to be pretty close to that when it's finished, because the satin stitches are a bit wider than this line. Now, the first thing to do when doing an applique is to have a really good look at the drawing, and it's always best, if possible, for you to digitize roughly in the order you're going to stitch, because it saves a lot of work later on reordering objects and moving them around, and then of course the start and end points, because the software defaults to closest join. The start and end points aren't always in the most desirable position, so you have to fiddle around with those and then add pathing in and put that in the right position. So if you can start your digitizing at the bottom level of the image and work to what's on top, it's a lot quicker in the long run. So give it a little bit of thought before you start. Now I'm looking at this image, and the thing that I can see that is underneath everything else is this part of the hat. It's underneath the face is underneath the rest of the hat, the collars are under, this part of the collar is under the hat, and the scarf is on top of all of that. The necklace is tucked under the hat and comes around here to the neck. I'll talk about that when we create the necklace. So the ideal part to start in is this part here of the hat. Now, it would be tempting, because this is the outer rim of the hat, to make this all one satin stitch line. But the problem there is that this line here has to go under the face, and this line has to go on top of the face. If it's all one line, that's not possible. So we're going to have to just create one line for this part here as our very first object. Now, this is a more complex applique overall, and so we're going to use the Advanced Applique tool to create the applique, because there are so many different areas, and we're not going to have closed objects for all of the areas. So the Advanced Applique tool allows you to have open objects, so long as the open objects touch each other and enclose an area that can have fabric put in it. So this line here will touch this line here and will be enclosed with this part of the face. So let's get started. We're going to use an open object, a satin stitch outline, and the default satin stitch for version 9 is 3 millimeters, which is okay for an applique, and depending on your size of your applique, you may even be able to go a little bit wider than that so that you grab more of the fabric, particularly if you have a fabric that frays easily. A 4 millimeter wide satin stitch would work better for that, but if your applique is small, it might be too heavy for the applique, so you need to consider that. I'm going to use black because I'm going to make this part of the hat black. You could make the inside of the hat a different colour to the outer brim, and in that case you would probably make this line the colour of the inside of the hat. But we're going to use black. So, or I am, so it's up to you. So I'll choose my black colour. I've got my satin stitch outline and my open object. I'm going to zoom in and I'm just going to start here and create the line and finish here and enter. So that's line number 1. Line number 2 will be the face because that sits on top of this line, but it's underneath this part of the hat. So we're going to choose a different colour for that. We're going to choose some sort of colour that works as a skin colour. I'm going to use the faded pink, actually I'll use the sand colour in Bernina. I'm just using the Bernina colours. If you want to set up your threads differently, that's up to you, but I'm generally just use the Bernina colours and then set the threads up at the end if I want to particularly have the names of the brand of thread showing. So I'm creating this part of the face. Now if you can't see where to go here, I'll just escape out of that tool and start again. If you can't see where you're going, you can go out of true view and you can see a little bit better then. And I'll start here again. You'll see that the difference between my right and left clicks in the colour of the little rings that appear. And I'm going to stop here. This will overlap even though I'm going right on the edge here because of the width of the stitches. And I'm going right into the lip here and enter. Now, it would be sensible to continue on and finish the rest of the face because we've got that colour thread in our machine at that time. To prevent us having to do a tie off here and continue and then tie in again down here, then I'm going to actually create a path of running stitch, and that means the machine, when it's doing the cover stitch for the applique, won't slow down, tie off and then start again. It's going to just continue stitching all of the face. So I can see my little white cross here when I'm not in true view, so that's another advantage of digitizing when you're not in true view. So I know that this object finishes here. I'm going to change from the satin stitch to a running stitch to create my path, and I'm going to start on the white cross. I'm going to come in straight across here to the lip, and then I'm just going to go on the inside of the lip here to path down to my next part of my face, which is here, and enter. My white cross has come to the end of that path, so I can now go back to satin stitch. Everything else is the same, still open objects, still the colour sand. And I start again at the white cross and just digitize around. I'm just going through the centre of that line. It's up to you whether you create this slight bump in the neck or whether you just make it smooth, and I'm going to finish there, enter. So that's the face done. I could do the lips now because they're on top of the face, or I could start with the hat. Let's do the lips while we're here. So I'm going to choose a nice hot pink colour, and these don't have to be an outline, these can be closed object. With the Advanced Applique tool, you can use a combination of closed and open objects to create the borders. The lips will actually close off this border, this hole here, and create the border for part of the face here, or part of the border for the face. So we're going to get a closed object. I'm going to do 2 separate lips because I don't want the satin stitches to be too long, and I'm going to make them a satin fill. And I'll put the bottom lip in first. And just making sure that that covers the end of the face outline. And and probably come in here and through here and enter, and there's my satin stitch lip. I can fiddle around with stitch angles and the look of it later. Now I'll create the top lip, and so I'm going to start up here so that I know that it, actually I won't, I'll start about here because I don't want a really sharp point up here. So I'm going to start here. The software will work out the closest join for us, as I said. Now when I get down to here, I want to make sure I have a little bit of overlap. Even though there's pull compensation, I've actually got my outlines, I can't go up there right now, but I've got the outlines turned on, so you can actually see a black outline around here when you've got your outlines, show outlines turned on. So I can see where my digitizing line is, and I want to go just on the other side of that digitizing line, ignoring the actual stitches because that's showing the existing setting for pull compensation. So it's the outline that is the actual digitizing line. So when I get to here, I can then cross back over that bottom lip's outline and just continue on to finish my top lip. I'm going to I want this to look nice up here. You can see that my stitching comes right out to here. So I'm going to backspace. I'm going to have to make that lip a little bit further forward than the actual line. So I'm going to come up to the outer edge so that I'm actually crossing over those stitches. And I will enter there. I can reshape that later as well. Let's just have a look how far we've gone now in true view. So there we have two lips. Now you can see here that that stitching still protrudes a little bit. So I would select that face outline and reshape that just to bring it in on a little slightly less angle till it tucks in under the lip and maybe come down a bit. There's one stitch still sticking out, but I'm not sure that that's actually going to stitch like that. I think that's just a glitch, because if I hide those lips, that's my travel line, of course. It's always a good idea to check what's going on. So my travel line, because I moved the end of this, my travel line has to be moved too. So I'll select that and reshape that. Wondered why that wasn't behaving. I might just try and delete that one node, and then I only have to bring this one down. Okay, and unhide the lips, and there we go. So those ends look okay coming into each other. The nose, even though it's right next to this black outline, the nose will be defined by that shape. You can, when you come out, you can see it defining that. But you know, don't be afraid to go back in and reshape as you go or at the end when you've finished. Reshaping won't change the order of the stitching. Alright, so we've done that part of the face. Actually, before we do this hat, we have to do the collar, because that is under that part of the hat as well. So let's do all the collars. I'm going to get a open object now, because this is actually two open it comes up here and across here and down. Makes it a bit difficult to get that necklace in, but we'll see how we go. And these ends here are open, so we can do this as an open object. So open object, satin, and we want a red colour. So I'll just go back to the red, and I'll start here. And I don't need to hide that. I know that that goes across there somewhere, but if you need to hide or go out of true view so you can see what you're doing, by all means do that. And you can zoom in and out while you're digitizing with your mouse wheel. And of course I started in the wrong place, so I'm going to escape, because I needed to start down the bottom so that I could end up down the bottom there. So escape, don't be afraid to start again if you find you've done something wrong. So I'm starting on the inside this time, coming up, then I'll go across here. And finish down there, enter. So that's my collar, and again, if it looks a bit bumpy or wonky, then select it and reshape it. I've got that. If you followed the line, you might be slightly in the middle of the line one place, on the edge of the line another place. What the important thing is to make it look nice, ignoring the image once you've got the rough shape. I'm going to bring that out a bit too. That's better. Okay, select and click off. Now, because this part of, I'll just spread those apart a bit too. So I'll select that and reshape and bring this line up a little bit, because I don't want them stitching on top of each other. So again, you don't have to stick religiously to the image. You can ad-lib a little bit, and so that it stitches out nicely. That's the important thing. Alright, now, because this is butting up to this red line, the software will actually work out to start and end down here and then continue on with this red line. So you don't need to worry about making a path here, because the apply closest join will sort it out. You can always check at the end to see if you've got any tie-ins and tie-outs that you don't, that are unnecessary, and fix that later. But I know that the software will sort this out. So again, open object, my red color, my satin line. Now this time I have to come from the top down here across the bottom and back up this line. So I'm starting here. Come across, and I probably want to stop about there because of the width of the satin, but again, reshape if you have to, if you need to, and come across here wide enough for 2 rows of satin stitching, and then follow this line back under the hat there, enter. Now I'm going to run into trouble with the satin stitch outline for the scarf if I have this line so far over, so I will reshape that, select it, and bring this across to about there, and then of course I'll need to smooth the whole lot out. I might leave it like that, that doesn't look too bad, just try and get that bump out there. Alright, and this one I might just bring back at a slightly different angle so that this line will cover it. Let's have a look at how it ended up down here. That all looks okay. If I go out of true view, those stitches are overlapped quite well, so I'm not going to have any issues of it not enclosing the space. Okay, select and click off, and so now I'm coming to this part of the hat, the brim of the hat. This can all be one line, or it could be 2 separate lines. If you made it 2 separate lines, you would have 3 lines intersecting here, so I would rather make it one single line and try and get a nice corner here with the reshape tool. If I can't get a nice corner there, then I would have to split it into 2 lines, but I think I'll get a better corner with one line, and I won't have so many lines all ending there. So open object, the satin line, and I want the black color this time, and I'm going to start here. Actually no, I'll start down here, because I actually want to end here, because that's the closest part to this part of the hat, and I will path across here and do that part of the hat next. So let's start here. I'm going to start there, and I'll zoom out again now to get a nice smooth line running up through here. Now I'm going to make 2 little nodes here for the point. I don't want a really sharp point, but I'll see if 2 nodes work. I might delete one later, and end there, enter. let's have a look at that in true view and see if I like the look of it. Actually, I'm not all that keen. Let me see what about the reshape. Select it and reshape. Let's bring this one back just a fraction. That's better. No. So it's just a little bit of tweaking there. If I had only one node, let's see what that looks like, because I can always undo. So if I delete that node, I'm going to get a point like that, which I would have to bring back until it crossed over. Actually, that's not too bad either, so I might leave it like that. So this is personal choice of the finish you like there. That seems to work for me, so I'm going to leave that line like that. Now, as I said, I'll go out of true view and my white crosses here. I want to do this part of the hat next because that's black also, and that reduces the thread change. So I'm going to path from here to there. So open object, single run in the black color, path from my cross, which is here, come up here, well actually backspace, I can come just on the inside of that sash. Now, the only time I wouldn't do this pathing is if I was using black and then I was covering it with white or some other stitch that the black might show through, or if I was using an open stitch here, of course, you wouldn't want to see a path running through the open stitch. So they're the only times you wouldn't do this. Enter. So now my cross is here, I can start my black satin stitch for the top part of the hat. So come back down here to change it to satin and start at the white cross. And finish there. Enter. Alright, so now there's only the sash, and then of course I probably should have done this necklace before, so you don't always think of things. I'll have to do it later and move it to the right part of the software. So let's look at this sash now first, and of course this part of the sash is under the knot, and so are these two parts. So I'm going to start with this part of the sash first, then I'll do this part of the sash, and then I'll do this part on top because that part is on top of that part. So I'm going to change, there's a colour change, so it has to tie off, so I'm going to change the colour to red. I've got satin stitch outline already and an open object, so I'm just going to start here and come zoom in up here. I want to get a nice corner here, and stop there and enter. Now we can have a look up here. Let's go to true view. That looks fine there. I think I might move this corner over a little bit. Let me just get my reshape tool and move this corner over and up a little bit so that it looks like that sash is actually tied around the top of the hat. That's better, and I might move this one up just a fraction and then give it a bit of a curve there as well. Whoops, no, back a bit. Now I've just noticed my pathing shows, and I first thought, oh well, the fabric will cover that, but it won't, because this is the cover stitching, and because the cover stitching stitches on top of the fabric, it's going to show. So I need to reselect that path, so I'll have to go to individual objects, go down to the bottom, select that path and reshape that so that it's hidden underneath that satin stitch. That's better. Might even bring that up even higher. Okay, select and click off. Now I want to reshape this down the bottom so that it's going to be covered by the knot. And while I'm in the reshape tool, I noticed I did finish on this side. So I would actually rather finish on that side so I can do this bit next. So I'm going to take my start point and move it down to this end, and I'm going to take my end point and move it over there. The wrong one moved. Put my end point over there and my start point there. Okay, so now select and click off. I can go to a single run with the red. This one ended here. If I go out of true view, there's a white cross there, so I can start there. Whoops, I've still got the select tool. Click off and get my open object, single run, red color, and create a little path to here and enter. Now I'm going to start with my satin outline again and digitize this part of the sash. Enter, and I might need to reshape that a little bit, so I'll select it, reshape. It's hard sometimes to judge if you just follow the line, the width of the actual satin stitching. So when you're doing applique, and I need to come in so that that gets overlapped nicely. That's good. Down here I probably want to come down at a slightly shallower angle so that the satin stitch will cover that, but I'll have to check that when I've done this piece of the satin stitching. So select and click off, and it finished here, but it will apply the closest join and it'll do a travel because I would really like to start here and end here. So I'll get my satin red outline, open object, and start there. And finish there. Enter. That's not too bad at all. Let's have a look at this spot here. And we've got a little bit of an issue going on here because I moved this red and I probably shouldn't have bothered. I probably should have just ended it in here. So I'll select this part and reshape it again. And I'm actually going to just bring it into there so that I haven't got a big mess of lots of stitching here. So that's nicely covered there. I'll just bring it a little bit further across. That's better. If I go out of true view, that looks nicer now. I'll just get that little wobble bump out of there and zoom out. That looks pretty good. Alright, now there's just the knot to do. So I've finished this part of the scarf here. If I go out of true view, my white cross should be there. Yes. So now I can start this knot here. So I need a closed object because this is a closed area. Alright, start here again. I'm going to put a square node there and then right click around the corner. Square node, right click around the corner. Square node, right click around the corner. Square node, right click around the corner. Square node and enter. And that should have been a closed outline. So I'll select it and make it a satin outline. There we go. So let's have a look at that in true view. Alright, I'm not really happy with these angles here. So let's go to the reshape tool, and there's only, because it's a line, you can only change that angle of stitching by moving the node slightly unless you make it into an object. When you can see, if I go to edit, I can't add stitch angles to a line. So I just tweaked that little node there, moved it down a little bit, and that fixed this angle here. Yes, you don't have add stitch angles available with lines, only with objects that are closed objects. filled with fill stitch or satin stitch or whatever. Alright, so select and click off, and there's only the necklace to do. Now the necklace should have been under the hat, and I'm not sure, I would have thought it would have sat on top of the collar, but in the schemes of things, you could reduce this collar to a point here, and then the necklace could go further across, and I think I might do that. So I'm going to select that object and reshape it, and I'm going to delete that node so that it actually comes to a point here. I'll just make sure it covers that neck, bring that in just a little bit, and that way, if I bring it down just a little bit, how far can I go? That's about the limit, because I need to cross that unless I select this one and bring the neck down a little bit, reshape. And then select this one and reshape that down just a bit more. That means I can bring the necklace across the top of the, or into the top of the neck. It's just going to look better, I think. Alright. Again, this is personal opinion. Now, I should have put that in before that part of the hat. Let's go to our colour blocks so we can find. I should have put that in probably just after the lips, because that will be on top of the neck but underneath the hat. So I can easily use my travel toolbar to do that. So I need to go, let's just zoom to fit. I need to go out of true view, go to the start of the design, so hit the tulip and the back arrow, that will make everything go black. Then I want to jump forward object by, actually I can do colour by colour, it'll be quicker. So I'll go colour by colour, go forward one colour, forward another colour, forward another colour. That's at the end of the lips and before the red of the collar. So let's put our necklace in now. Now, Fenny used the candlewick outline, so I'm going to try and do the same. So I'm going to digitize an open object, and I'll choose the candlewick. I'm just going to go with the default candlewick to start with, and then I will see if I can make it look better after I've done it through the object properties. And enter. Now, the default is spaced out like this, so we need to select that, go to the object properties by right clicking and clicking on object properties. We want the outline stitch, and it's showing that it's a candlewick border, but it's showing it's the Colonial 4.5, and its spacing is a little bit less than double, a little bit less than the width of the candlewick apart. So if we don't want any space there, we need to create bring the space down. But before I do that, let's have a look at the size of those candlewicks, and they're a bit big. There are, if we select, there are some smaller ones, so I prefer the full knot to the half knot. So let's try the 3mm full knot and apply that. Now that's the one, and that is actually spaced without a gap. So you can adjust the spacing and leave the size the same. So if you want a gap, make the spacing bigger. If you don't want a gap, make it the same. And it's probably not a good idea to overlap candle wicking very much at all, because there's a lot of stitching. It will start to get very dense. So I'm okay with that. So let's go OK, and I don't think I chose the gold colour, so I'll do that now. Let's just make it an orange so that it looks gold, because the colours don't always come out as you expect on the screen. It'll look more like gold if I choose orange. Okay, let's click off and zoom out, and we need to go to the end of the design. Select that and go to the end of the design. All right, well that's all your digitizing finished for the applique. I can hide the image and just double check that you've got your overlaps okay and there's not too much overlap anywhere where there could be less. check that your shapes are all okay. Turn on your connectors and look for tie-ins and tie-offs. Now I have got some around the lips here, so let's just see what's going on here. Now I've fiddled around with these shapes here, and I've got some funny things going on with my show connectors. So I think if I select this pathing, it no longer meets up with this part here. So I'm going to reshape that so that it does. That's fixed that end of it, and I need to fix that end of it, and I probably can delete that node. That's better. I'm a little bit worried about this part of the face here. If I select it, there's not much overlap, so I'm going to reshape that as well and bring that in a bit more. That's better. I think I'm pretty right now. So let's see what that looks like. And I will try and do the applique now. So if I hide, the picture's hidden. If I go to color blocks, the picture's hidden, it's not there. I'm going to try selecting Control A. Sometimes there's a few objects in the embroidery that interfere with the advanced applique, and the necklace might be one of them. So we'll see first by going Control A and see if I can get in the applique toolbox, get the advanced applique to work. Yes, so it didn't matter, but I did have to make sure those edges were tucked in under here. It would not, I did try earlier, I had to pause the video. I couldn't get the advanced applique to work, and the reason was that this little part here wasn't overlapped enough. So they're the things you need to look out for. Okay, so now I've got a mesh all over the applique, which is what I want. I want fabric in all of these areas, so I can start adding my colours and fabric. So I'm going to place colour and fabric. I'll start with the colour because it doesn't matter what order you do these in, the stitch order will be sorted out. You can put your colour in or your fabric in any order. So I'm going to choose a flesh colour for the face. Let's choose this sandy colour and put that in here. Now you can see the necklace has divided those two areas, so I need to fill both areas in. I need a black now. If I go to the bottom, I'll find a black for the hat. In those three areas, and I need now some fabric for the scarf. I chose to use a fabric so that I could see more what it would look like, but you could just stick a colour in there and still stick whatever fabric you want in it. For the fabric, we need to go place fabric in patches, and I actually used I think it was the Glasshouse selection here in the 2016 Benetex, and it was this one here, 60325. So I'll select that one and I'll put that in the collar and the sash. So there we go. Now you can see here in the colour film as I've done that, it's created a placement line and a tack down line for the applique, but I'm in colour blocks mode. But this is the point where you decide, do you want to cut your applique pieces separately? And in that case, you would only need to, and then have a placement line and then a tack down line. So this would be fine. Or do you need to cut the fabric in situ? In other words, put a placement line, then a cutting line, and then a tack down line. If you do put a cutting line in, it will do each area individually so that you can cut and you know, lay one piece of fabric, cut that out, lay the next piece of fabric, and so on. So I will do that in a minute, but before I do that, there are some areas where I forgot to put a bit of fabric in there. in the knot. There we go. Some areas that could be all one piece of fabric. For instance, all of the sash could be one piece of fabric, and at the moment it's creating separate pieces for all of those areas. So we can merge those fabrics. So we'll go back with the back button, and so as you can see, I'm working down through the dialogue here. So the next one is merge patches together. So to merge a patch, I'll do the hat, these two pieces of black for the hat first because it'll be really obvious. To merge them, you need to click on the first piece and the outline around it will turn red. Then you click on the second piece and you get one white outline for the whole area. Now to move on and merge some more fabric, for instance, the two collar pieces could be merged together. So I can click on the first collar piece, the outline turns red, click on the second collar piece, and it merges into one piece of fabric. And if you look really closely, there's no longer a join down here or stitching down right in the bottom point for the placement line. And the hat is also one piece as well. Now we'll do the scarf, so we can merge this with the knot. I've got all one white outline. I need to click on that again to turn it red and click on the next area. I've got all one white outline. Click on it again to turn it red and click on the next area. Now that's all one piece of fabric, and we can see in the colour film here that that is one piece of fabric. So now I'll go back. You can always unmerge patches if you think you made a mistake. In here we've got our stitching properties, so I'm going to set the stitch types manually. You will need to do that if you want to add a cutting line in. So I'm going to select the set stitch properties manually, and before you get anything available here you need to click on an area. So I'm going to click on the, we'll start with the face. Oh, I forgot to merge the face, so I'll go back. Merge patches together, that piece of the face with that piece of the face. That's better. Back and set stitch types manually. You need to click on an area to do that. So I'm going to click on the facial area and I'm going to add a cutting line in there. And you can see here now that I've got a green cutting line for the face. I'm going to now click on the collar, and you might see this little minus here and it shows this. I'm not sure if that's actually, I don't think it has, because I can't play around with the colour film slider while I'm in the Advanced Applique. But what I do just to make sure is I click on that little minus and it goes blank, and then I add a tick in there, and then I'm sure I've got the applique line, the cutting line in there. Alright, so then we go on to the hat. And again remove that and put the cutting line in. The sash, remove the minus, put the cutting line in, and the other part of the hat. So it's all the objects that have outlines that have to be manually changed one at a time here. And then back, and we can then close that. Our applique is done. So let's look at this colour film. I'll bring it out a little bit further. And we have a placement line for the back part of the hat and a cutting line, a placement line for the sash and a cutting line, a placement line for the front of the hat and a cutting line, a placement line for the face and a cutting line, and for the collar. And it doesn't matter what order these are in, because then after that there will be a tack down line which will tack down all the areas, and then it will start the cover stitch. So I've got the first black line, I've got the face line, the little travel run, the other face line, the lips, the necklace, the collar, the hat, and the scarf on top. So that's been a very long video. I hope it's covered everything you need to know. If not, ask questions below. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and happy digitizing.